Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
Hey, it is my pleasure to have with me today, in our home as well, the Vice President of El Salvador, Felix Ulloa. And you're here in the United States. You're taking some time off as Vice President. It's a very unusual situation. In the United States, our President and our Vice President, they never take any time off between elections. But El Salvador has a different policy. What exactly is it?
Well, this is a constitutional provision which mandate that the person who is in charge of the presidency, if he wants to run again for office, he needs to fulfill two conditions. One is to be in the first term, to run for the second term. And the second is a hiatus of 6 months. So we are in a leave of absence. According to the Constitution, we have to wait until the next initial term, which is on June the 1st, will start. So if we win the elections, we stay at home and we will work with the teams waiting for the June the 1st. If we lose, which is a possibility, then we take again the office and give the power to the next person who will win. At this moment, all the polls show that President Bukele has over 90% of the support of the population. Therefore, we are sure that this time, again, President will be elected by the majority of the population.
And I wanted to talk about that because I know your background, you're an attorney.
Yeah.
And a scholar of constitutional law in El Salvador. And some of the things that you worked on as an attorney, some of the constitutional changes that you made enabled, I guess, your party to run for the presidency and vice presidency, as well as to have the situation that you find yourself in today.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about that because my understanding in El Salvador, similar to the United States, you have two parties. You had two major parties. And then you and the President Nayib Bukele formed a new party. A new party, right? In fact, it's called Nuevos
Ideas. New Ideas.
Ideas. Nuevas Ideas.
Nuevas Ideas.
New ideas, right? That must have been so difficult to do, right? I mean, it had never been done before. You were the first to do it. And to your credit, some of it was your work that created that foundation.
I did it because the President Bukele gave me this assignment. Because New Ideas or Nuevas Ideas, it was just a movement, like a social movement, a grassroots movement. And he quit his party, political party, the FMLN, a leftist party. He asked me to draw the bylaws for a new party. And I did it. It was presented to the Electoral Commission. It was registered, but they didn't allow to Bukele to run under this party. Right. So we tried to do and overcome different obstacles. That any time that he overcome one obstacle, another one. He was sued by the Attorney General. He was sued by the Supreme Court. He was sued by the controller of the government. All the media, the mainstream media, was against him. I mean, it was, let's say, all the obstacles they could put in the way to a candidate. Finally, and because that I am Vice President, in the very last minute, just 2 hours away of the deadline to be registered, it was a party who allowed him to be part of the ticket. And he called me and said, you will be part of the ticket. Because in that way, we were able to run in 2019, and we won. And we defeat this two-party system, as you mentioned, because after the Civil War, when we signed out the peace accords in 1992, there was the two parties, Arena, the right-wing party, FMLN, the left-wing party. They ran in the government, Arena, for 20 years, 4 mandates, FMLN for 10 years, 2 mandates. And there was this zero-sum game. You know, whatever Arena said, FMLN opposed. When FMLN proposed something, Arena opposed. So that was, this perverse game that the population, the society was tired. So it was a disgrace for our people those 30 years. So when the people was, tired, they decide to choose this third way. That's what we call. It's a sort of third way, following the thought of Anthony Giddens in England. The London School of Economics has that proposal, the third way. Also another philosopher, Italian, Roberto Bobbio, who speak about the terza option. So that means a third way. Anyway, so with this proposal, the president won the elections in 2019, but the Congress was still integrated by those two parties. So the opposition was a strong opposition, even during the pandemic of the COVID-19, all the proposals from the executive branch was blocked by the legislative branch and the judiciary branch. It's because that the population was aware that we cannot succeed with our policies, the public policies, because the legislative branch. Therefore, in the election of 2021, the population, it was a high turnout and with an overwhelming turnout in favor of the new ideas. Now, Nuevas Ideas has the majority in the Congress to make decisions, and the policy, the lawmakers are now in the same side of the executive branch. Therefore, we start what he said, the rebirth of El Salvador. This is the spot that we are now.
And it's such an unbelievable story, not only getting to the presidency and the vice presidency, but what the two of you have been able to accomplish since getting into office. As we look around the world, I can go almost country by country, saying how things are not better, they're worse than what they were. In our country, in the United States, things are not as good as they were a number of years ago, in most people's opinion. When you look at El Salvador, it's an up-and-coming, almost 180-degree difference from how you found the country, starting with the gangs and the crime. At the time that, Mr. Vice President, that you went into office, El Salvador had maybe the highest homicide rate of any country
in the world.
In the world, for sure, South America, right? Maybe in the world. You've reduced that, by some 60%?
Well, let me tell you this. In August 2015, The Guardian, this British newspaper, in the front page said, San Salvador, the world capital of homicide. Because that month, there were more than 900 homicides in 1 month. That means 30 people killed in a day. That means more than one Salvadorian was killed every hour. Now, today, we have passed 500 days with zero homicide. Zero homicide in 500 days.
A year and a half almost.
No, in the whole period. We count from 2019 to now, and we have more than, the last report of the police was 510 days without homicide.
Wow.
It's amazing. And that model has inspired different countries in Latin America and in other parts of the world. And because that, the President Bukele still leads any opinions and any polls worldwide as the best president in the world. So for us, we now feel proud about his leadership, about his, as a statesman, the way that he managed that. And for us, as he said, probably we are almost won the war against the gangs. Now we have to win the war against corruption. That is our second big task.
Battle.
Because corruption and violence, they work together for the battle of the Salvadorian people. Now, he said we will start in our second mandate to rebirth or being reborn of El Salvador with the new economic policy, the growth of our economy. Just today, if you read the New York Times, it has been approved, the BTC, which is the bet that we did for the digital economy, when we approved the Bitcoin as a legal tender. That was in 2021. Then last year in 2023, we approved the law for digital assets. And with our partnership with Google, now we have Google Cloud that was signed by the president a few months ago here in California. We are now planning in the digital era. And this is something that only a leader with a vision and an envision for the future can lead a country that was, as he said, he put an X, the former Twitter, rebuilding in the ashes of the past.
And I want to talk to you about the Bitcoin in a minute, but I want to finish with the crime and the corruption. Mr. Vice President, how did you get rid of so many of the gangs and the cartels there?
That was a very hard task because the previous government, they have a database. They knew where this bad guy was hiding, how they operate, how they made all the crimes, but never act because they were in a sort of pact, an agreement. One of the main gangs with one of the party and the other one with another party. We have records, video records, and there are some law cases in the courts. And for those leaders of the two parties, former president of Congress is in a lawsuit. The former mayor of Arena, two former ministers of FMLN, both are in the courts, following the processes, the due process of law. But given that situation, we couldn't never defeat the gangs. So it was this government who decided, one day when the president said, today, that was at the end of March 2022, when we declared the state of exception according to the Constitution. And he said, today we have declared the war against gangs. And we are doing that based on the international humanitarian law, which means that the jus ad bellum, which is the right and also the responsibility that any state has to protect their population when it is attacked, that we implemented that. And I said, this is not only according and based in our constitutional framework, but also according to the doctrine, the principles of the humanitarian international law. We are protecting our population. You know how was the balance that we received in 2019 when we received the report of the Legal Institute of Legal Medicine? 41,000 Salvadorians were killed in the last two governments. I mean, that was a rate much greater than a country in war. We were paying that price. So the decision made to declare the war implied to make changes in the legal framework, in the penal code, in the processal penal law, in order to give more powers to the institution. The Attorney General, for instance, according to the Constitution, you cannot detain a person more than 72 hours, 3 days. And then you have to pass to the judge. Now we extended that period to 15 days. Now the right of your correspondent, the privacy, is a constitutional right. Now it was suspended by the state of exception. So if there is a person that is captured by the police, you have the right to take his phone, check all the message or computer, whatever. So this is the only second guarantees that has been suspended so far. But some people confuse the state of exception because we are going to have elections under the state of exception. And I explained, state of exception is not a siege. It is something that has never affected in the past, neither is affecting now the public liberty. You have the right, the free speech, free gathering, free assembly, whatever. We have had different international events like the Miss Universe, like the Central American and the Caribbean Games, which brought more than 5,000 athletes and their teams, and they were running around all of the country. There is no restriction to any public liberty. Bottom line, the state of exception affects just two guarantees, but those guarantees are not public, are individuals. That means that the bad guy who was caught by the police, who cannot apply to say, I am being detained for 72 hours. No, you can
Right,
wait
you can
until
hold
the
them
15th.
and
That's it.
and do
so
some.
that is the state of exception.
Look, this seems to be a situation that occurs in a lot of countries in South America.
Now in
Ecuador. I wanted to talk to you about Ecuador because it's going on in Ecuador now as we speak. And I would guess that in the past administrations, that the president and the vice president, you'd be afraid to pass these kind of laws and take this type of action because the cartels, the gangs are so powerful. I mean, were you and President Nayib, were you concerned for your families? I mean, it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, but more than a personal security, we were afraid to lose a war because the way we found the forces of the public order, the police and the army, they were very, very poor. I mean, the police was with cars that need to be pushed to start on. We have found police with 3 bullets in the pistols, with no bulletproof jackets, with boots and bad shapes. I mean, that was the way we found them. So to start a war with them, we need to improve their equipment and their morale, because they were discouraged to face and to fight against the bad guy, because they have strong weapons, even missiles they have. So when we implemented the territorial control plan, it is a plan with 7 steps. The third step was to buy the equipment
and
for that.
And by the way, these 7 steps you're about to talk to me about.
Yeah.
Would this be your recommendation for Ecuador?
I mean, we talk about different countries that where they came to receive some information, and we are willing to share with them our experiences. By the way, the Minister of Justice, which is the head of the Security Cabinet, along with the National Director of the Police, with the Minister of the Defense, he traveled to Argentina in the ceremony for Milei, and he met with the Minister of Government, Patricia Bullrich, to share our experience. In the case of Ecuador, we have received some sort of, recommendation, but it's different. I mean, and I always said, and repeatedly in different presentations or meetings, that El Salvador is a unique case. You cannot repeat. There is not a recipe that, one recipe fits all. No.
It's individualized.
It's individualized, it's sui generis, but there are some sort of techniques that you have to implement. Because as I said, why we was able to defeat without not a bloodshed, this war, we are winning the war and there is not a bloodbath. I mean, you cannot report, a massacre, nothing, because we had a previously information system, intelligence. As I said, there were in the police the records of all these guys, the database. So when we went to capture them, we knew where they were hiding, how they operate, and that happened. So we recommend to other countries is try to do this work of intelligence, collect all the information, try to do the equipment, because we saw in the news that some, forces of the order, they are fighting with pistol, and the bad guys are with, AK, M16, this is an unbalanced way to confront them. So it is something that we will share. And also, it's not just a matter of military action. It's not like, this is the coactive phase of the government, the repression. But you have to have another more broad strategy. As I said, you have to have on your side the legislative branch, because they have to modify the laws which allow you not only fight with them, but also increase the penalties and do all what needs to be done in order that those people who is captured don't get released or get free, because the law will have some loopholes. And the other one is the third branch. You have to have on your side the judiciary branch, because if the judges, even you have a good law, you have a good enforcement forces.
The judges can be corrupt.
So that we did also. The president sent to the retirement almost 60% of the old judges that were under, either under corruption because they received bribery from the gangs or they were threats. I received a judge, she was a friend of mine, who told me, what can I do? Help me, I need to go to the United States. They try to give me a visa because the gang leader, which is under my case, he sent me the pictures of my two kids in the school where they study. So what? I mean, that was the problem. Now we have a new generation of judges, and then we improve the justice administration, we improve the legal framework, and we strengthen the force of the public forces.
I can't overstate the magnificent job the two of you have done there. And there is I was just watched on Instagram. You and the president are taking this leave of absence to campaign for 6 months. He went to the Congress, and he went to the cabinet, and he stood there and lectured the cabinet and the Congress. And he said, I'm leaving for 6 months with the vice president, but I'm going to keep my eye on every one of you. I'm watching you. If anybody takes a campaign contribution to do a favor, that's corruption. This man over here is the Attorney General. He'll put you in jail. I have never witnessed a president of any country talking to the Congress and the cabinet and the judges the way that Nayib did. Never in my life have I ever seen that. You were there, I assume.
I was there. It was,
just
across the desk.
And how was it received?
No, it was received, and just to be more precisely, it wasn't the legislative, neither the judiciary. It was just only the executive branch. It was ministers, secretaries, and that. Because he said, the executive branch is under my responsibility. Because the independence of powers, we cannot have a meeting with the MPs.
They're appointed by...
I mean, there were only executive branch. Right. And he pointed out that and said very seriously, all of you, we are part of the executive branch, except this man. And he pointed to the Attorney General, because I called him to be here in order to investigate all of us. Any problem? No. Okay, well, investigation will go in the past and in the future. No problem? No. And I said, do you think that because we will be in a leave of absence, you can do whatever you want? No. I've been watching you. Even I know what is going on in your bathroom. He said that. It is clean properly or not. Yeah. So it was a strong message, saying and warning the people, don't think that because the head is absent, you can do whatever you want to do. And people receive, the reaction of the population was exactly as you said. No one president has delivered a speech in that way, because he used another example. He said, I want to leave a legacy, and my legacy cannot be as the legacy of my predecessor. The two last predecessors are in Nicaragua as protecting and as outlaws. The other one is in prison. The other one is also, running away. Yeah. So and he mentioned a case very important. He said, President Duarte was a Christian Democrat before the two-party system. People recall him and remember him as an honest man. He never took money, nothing from the public treasury. But his entourage,
the people
around him, they were, and I don't want to be the one that's never stole nothing. I was honest, but I was surrendered for that. So this is my legacy. Yeah. So it's.
So we only have like 2 minutes left, but I wanted to give me 2 minutes of advice that you would give the United States regarding immigration.
Regarding immigration, beware. And I sent a letter to Kamala Harris. She never responded.
Never answered.
She never answered. Right. And I said, Mrs. Vice President, beware that there is a change, a new government in our country and in the Northern Triangle of Central America. You were appointed by the President Biden to take care of the south border and the countries from the Northern Triangle. We presented to you, and I sent it to her, our program to invest in agriculture in order to rebuild the agriculture, because most of the people who flew to the United States came from the rural areas because the agriculture was abandoned. So there were no jobs, there were nothing. The coffee plantation fell down. So the people went first to the big city in El Salvador, but then to the United States. So if we invest in rebuilding the agriculture, the people will stay because it is a source of employment that 365 days in the year, all the time. In the agriculture, you are working all the time. So this is the opportunity, but I'm still waiting for the response.
And you're here in the United States
to promote the vote of our diaspora. What I would like to say and to remark is that for the first time, the Salvadorian living abroad can cast the vote and elect their representatives and the government, because you are allowed to vote by internet. With your ID, with address in the United States, you could start voting from January the 6th. I mean, this is an ongoing process. I call you, those who don't vote still, don't cast the vote, just do it. But if you have your ID with an address in El Salvador, or you are going to vote with your passport, you have to go to the consulate on February the 4th, which is the election day.
Okay, so Salvadorians, February 4th, you got to get out and
going to the consulate.
Go to the consulate.
Those who have not cast your vote, now.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for your time.
Thank you to you, Ed. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.